Okay, so this is something I've been thinking about for months now, and I probably did write it down before, but then I lost the papers or whatever. But I started writing it again on 2/12/24, and basically, for if I didn't already say this is about why anti-racism is actually racism. And it's numbered, but they're not really in any particular order. But anyway, here's the first one. Anti-racism doesn't even admit what racism is or why. Anti-racism won't speak on what a race, ethnicity, or nationality is. It won't admit how white supremacy was originally about jealousy, like the whole birthright thing with Esau that people talk about all the time. Although all white people don't come from Esau, obviously, because if they did, they would all be. I don't even think I could say the word, but when they're saying anti blah blah blah, you know what? If all of them did come from Esau, they actually would all be what they're saying people are anti. Even though the people that they're usually calling anti are also that second word that comes after that. Hopefully this makes sense because there's a lot of censorship and you really gotta hop around stuff these days. But yeah. Anyway, so about jealousy was originally about jealousy or why certain melinated people are so disliked. So there's the whole Hebrew thing. Then there's also the fact that the people consider Negroids because that's the actual race or the original people. So there's that. Although you may notice that the Hamitic Africans are more alike than the Negroes that are Hebrews. And also, the whole black label is really only used on certain people because a lot of Africans and a lot of people in Africa will tell you that they're not black. But that's a whole nother story. But I think I kind of mentioned that somewhere on here. But anyway, it won't talk about the original theory of evolution or how it was used to push Esau's atheist agenda after integration. And I think I'd go into that whole integration thing somewhere on here. Okay, so the second thing is anti-racism pushes black boule sellout Freemason Luciferians like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and etc. Yet won't talk about real people like Marcus Garvey. They won't tell you Martin Luther King taught docileness and learned this docileness from a child molester. It was actually this gay black dude, and he was also a pedophile, and he was sleeping with all the white boys, and there was a lot of stuff with that. But anyway, there was something else. Don't remember what it was, so I'm just gonna keep reading. They also won't tell you he worked for the serpent seed Rockefellers or the fake you-know-whos that run around Northeast Africa pretending to be the people, but I mean, it's a lot of different one of them. There's like the ones that'll tell you that they're Scottish, Irish, and German, but then there's also the higher up ones like the Rockefellers, which their DNA goes back to Egypt and Babylon. I'm trying to remember where I was at. Okay, fake you-know-whos, and was used to slowly start pushing communist or one world order ideology. Any name the elites are willing to tell you in school isn't worth hearing, and anybody that's always being pushed isn't worth hearing. Now, of course, these days with this whole left-right paradigm stuff that's going on, especially on the right side of the paradigm, because of course both ways are on the same bird and all that, but a lot of people fall into this. So on the right, there's a lot of people that pretend that they're getting censored or pretend that they're getting banned, but of course they're not getting banned or censored. Because I mean, if they weren't working with the elites, then they wouldn't have the platform they have, and they would actually disappear and be getting banned, but they're not. But yeah, so that's a little bit about the whole left-right paradigm thing. Trying to remember where I was at again. Oh my gosh. Willing to tell you. Okay, nobody wanted integration but indoctrinated college kids. Integration led to more Hebrews being killed, Hebrews losing their schools and businesses, everyone being indoctrinated in mandatory schooling, and secretive segregation called redlining, and also a whole bunch of other things happened. Okay, so the third thing, anti-racism won't admit that everyone came from the same two Negroids, Adam and Eve. Anti-racism is fueled by people with the white savior complex people. Wait a minute. Okay. Fueled people with white savior complexes and also with subconscious, covert, and overt racism, but they'll hide the overt. And so basically subconscious racism is like, it's basically like when people have those internal racist views that they may not really know are there, may not really see as racist. So like an example is maybe somebody that's in the white church scene and they don't want to admit who the real Northeast African Hebrews are because they want to feel connected to the Israelites and the bloodline more than they actually are, other than the whole being grafted in thing. Which is funny to me that so many Caucasian people are like that, because a lot of the Europeans or white people or whatever that are running around claiming to be the people, especially the ones in the elite part of that bloodline, and the ones that are actually running around the land, don't really like other white people, but nearly some of them don't, which I talk about in the, what was that video called? Am I in the Beast Religion Part 1, where I talk about the difference between the white supremacists at the top and the ones at the bottom. But yeah, anyway. Anti-racism, okay, I already read all of that. Such as the Antifa, which I don't even know if I can say that on here without that getting me a strike or something. Antifa are the white people who go to BLM rallies to push the LGBTQ, and then they start throwing grenades, which gets people shot up by the police. Also, the people who scream "Free Palestine" but won't mention the fact that those Europeans and / Babylonians running around Northeast Africa need to give the land back to the real Hebrews who originally lived there, that they deport and sent on to slavery. Not to mention BLM is owned by the white supremacists, feminists, and the LGBTQ, which is why the end goal of BLM was to get the colors black and brown on the LGBTQ pride flag, which for whatever reason nobody ever mentions that. All the BLM people never want to mention that happened. And it's like people are just avoiding that, and their eyes are closed with a veil over it and tape. People won't talk about why black lives don't matter to black people. And then 5, anti-racism won't admit the events you see on the news are staged by the white supremacist supremacy elite. So that's the white supremacists at the top. They're always framing other Caucasian people for everything, like the slave trades. And of course, due to the whole school system thing, a lot of Caucasian people that aren't really connected to the whole slavery thing either feel like they need to take accountability for that, or they feel proud of and they want to run around bragging about it, but they aren't actually connected to it like they think they are. But that's kind of another story. But I mean, I guess Well, no. I don't really know how to explain what I was about to say, so I'm just not going to try to say it. Okay, so... Yeah, so the serpent seed elites, they own all the media, so they're the ones that are always pushing all this racial narrative stuff in the news and these crimes that either were staged and pre-planned or didn't really happen, probably. And they do that just to stir people up. Just like how they changed the meaning of woke and changed Ariel quote unquote black to make white supremacists mad and stir up conflict about who can play a demon, which is really, really funny to me, because for those that don't know, mermaids are marine spirits. And everybody got mad over who can play a demon and who can't play a demon. And it's like, but you notice that white supremacists are never mad or talking about who can play the devil. But anywho, because it's like, even in the whole Jesus movies, if somebody says that someone who isn't white should play Jesus, then they get mad. But they don't care about who plays Satan, though, because it's like they made Jesus white, but then they made Satan red. Hopefully that made sense, because I always found that kind of funny. But anyway, 6. Anti-racism has it to where the immigration issue is put on Mexicans. But if you talk about the fact that it's really European and Asian, specifically Chinese and Russian sleeper soldiers, also some people from the quote-unquote Middle East too, but especially Russian and Chinese sleeper soldiers are coming in. When you mention that, people get mad. Especially the white supremacists that want to believe this whole Mexican narrative because they don't want to admit the fact that European spies are coming over here planning to kill everybody. But I guess I don't want to go all into that, because then I'll be off somewhere else. But yeah. And the last thing I wrote right here is, especially the people that are herded into the left-right paradigm. Which actually reminds me of something. Because it was like at first, the people that were herded into the left of the left-right paradigm were always saying that, wait a minute. They were always defending the Europeans running around Northeast Africa. But then once the whole Palestine narrative stuff started getting pushed, the people that were herded into the left all of a sudden didn't like the Europeans running around Northeast Africa anymore. But yet they used to be the ones that were always on their side. And now it's kind of weird, but yeah, that's just something that I noticed in that. Also, I seen, I don't even think I can say his channel name because he gets banned so much, so I don't even want to get a strike, so never mind. But I was about to talk about someone else who mentioned that. But I'm really trying to keep this channel up because I always get banned really quickly, even though I don't get views like that, which is really crazy. 7. Anti-racism avoids the issue of Willie Lynch syndrome and other type of self-hatred / colorism in melinated communities, and the issue of seeking white validation, apologies, and acceptance. Okay, so the other thing, and other forms of trauma bond. 8. They pretend they're gonna pass anti-racist laws for quote-unquote black people that they know they never actually passed just to make white supremacists mad, which causes extra conflict. This leads to more racial crimes against quote-unquote black people. This also goes into how the schools have white kids apologizing to black kids, allegedly, as people say, about slavery in schools, or at least some schools. But they say that only happens in quote-unquote blue states for the people that fall into the left-right mind herding crap. When in reality, schools should never talk about slavery because they'll never tell the full story like where the slaves came from or who ran the slave trades, like who actually ran the slave trades and why. They do this to get kids to hate themselves on both ends. 9. They won't speak on how white is actually a label for a purity complex and black is just an insult to confuse people. Well, insult term to confuse people about who's who and who's what. Also, that black actually means a void of color. They don't talk about how stupid the term African American is, or the fact that the N word is just a mispronunciation of Niger, which was where many Hebrew kingdoms were, which was Niger/Negro land. 10. Anti-racism made people agree to be called black instead of Negro, which Negro was closer to an actual identity, and the prior term Hebrew. 11. Anti-racism won't admit the terms like POC is an oxymoron because the first two Aboriginal people were what's now called quote-unquote black, which black actually means a void of color, which I already said. 12. Anti-racism also promotes wait a minute. Can't even really see this. Anti-racism also promotes Caucasian people who want to be activists, who do things like, this is actually kind of funny, who do things like verbally attack African people with slanted eyes for quote-unquote Asian fishing, even though it's just how the person looks, because of course the quote-unquote black people or Negroids are going to have the different features of different people because that's where everybody branched off from. Hopefully I explained that right. But that's pretty much the end of the video. I was really worried this was going to become 30 minutes.
This way. And apparently she can't wear her hair like that because it belongs to black people. So apparently a bunch of people got angry over the video because for 5 seconds her hair was a little frizzy. Of course, the main people that get angry about this stuff is white people that are trying so hard not to be racist that they're coming off a little racist. When you try to protect other races and cultures so much, you kind of come off as, oh, well, I gotta go protect them and stand up for them because they can't stand up for themselves. Really? You don't have anything a little more fucking important to worry about than a pop star's hairstyle that they wear for 5 seconds in a fucking music video? Katy Perry. Frizzy hair. Katy Perry. Well, of course they...
In, you know, my intention to like appreciate Japanese culture, I did it wrong with a performance.
Listen, I looked through the comments and you kind of get a gist of the people who are actually worried about cultural appropriation. Coming from a Chinese descent, I don't think your outfit has any problems with it. So then you start realizing who cultural appropriation is actually a problem towards. It's white people, but the other cultures and races themselves don't actually care because they acknowledge it's not a big deal and people can borrow other cool things from each other as long as they're not mocking it. It's just the white people that get their panties in a twist and they want to seem like activists and they want to seem woke, but they don't actually have they can't actually put in the effort and brain power to actually go and join a real movement and actually put in some effort to make a difference in the world. And then there's this whole argument